And this episode on More Than Lipstick, the stay-at-home mom, the social experiment. For the past 8 months, almost every household with children has been turned on its heels. We've all heard the news reports regarding families needing to adjust to their new normal. In fact, many of us are those families. Now, new normal looks differently in every home based on the number of parents or caretakers in the home, the children's ages, as well as their activities and your work experience or your work lifestyle. As it pertains to both mothers working in the home and outside of the home, we've all had some level of adjustment that's needed to have been made. As a mother, you worry about their developmental and social growth because we can all admit being shuttered in place with a small child is nothing short of an experiment. In the early months of this pandemic, it was very scary for me. However, I took solace in the fact that I was finally able to slow down and spend time with my toddler son. We did all sorts of things. We planted a garden. We did craft activities. We baked cookies. Anything that I could possibly find on Pinterest to keep my little guy entertained. As the weeks and months rolled on, I really began to think about what has been the impact of this pandemic on my child as it pertains to his social as well as his educational development. There weren't a lot of answers. There were a lot of ideas on what we could continue to do to keep them entertained, but I did not find a lot of information on what would be the overall impact of my child who's a social butterfly, an extrovert, and a rambunctious little boy. What would the impact be on him after months and months of not really having any engagement with his friends and his peers from his daycare? We were often told to say, you just need to pivot. It's going to be okay. But is it really going to be okay? I'm not really sure. And quite honestly, I think it'll be some time before we truly realize what the impact has been on our children. As teenagers and middle schoolers who are able to FaceTime with their friends, at least they have some level of interaction. Whereas with smaller children, unless they have other siblings in the home, you become their best friend, their playmate, their educator, their comforter, and the answers to all of the why questions. And then there's another component of this pandemic for moms who work outside of the house, who now found themselves stalled in their careers. Many of us did have the opportunity to work from home, but there are many parents like myself whose industry has been absolutely decimated as a result of this pandemic. I found myself on furlough, not truly knowing what the future was going to hold. And so after reading a number of articles and listening to tons of talk shows and other podcasts saying, well, this is a great time to pivot. But truly, what does pivot mean? And what does pivot mean to a mother of a small child or a parent who's needing to homeschool? Do we now have the opportunity to explore other opportunities, perhaps outside of our careers? Or perhaps we don't have that as an option, that we truly do depend on our jobs in order to provide not only financial resources, but things like healthcare. So the other morning when I was in my kitchen, watching my little guy have cereal at the breakfast table and me making my morning cup of coffee and beginning to wash yet the beginning of endless dishes that I will wash throughout the course of the day, a news report came on. And they provided some statistics that, quite honestly, I should not have been shocked about, but in fact I was. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, they reported that Black women with children are disproportionately higher at a higher rate are not returning or unable to return to the workforce. It didn't matter whether or not if we had degrees or those without degrees. Over 6.4% of Black women with children have not been able to return to the workforce, specifically due to childcare or the lack of comfort in sending their children back to school safely. I was rather shocked. And more importantly, I was probably more saddened than I was shocked, because many of us have worked very hard over the course of our life to get where we are in a company or in a business or as an entrepreneur. And now we're faced with the fact that we may not be able to return in the foreseeable future. And this can be very daunting and very depressing. And quite honestly, vacillating between guilt and sadness. Because I don't know about you, but I've contemplated, or at least asked myself the question a few times in the course of the past few months, what are the risks of me sending my child back to daycare? The risk reward, allowing him to have time with his friends, to continue to learn and develop, to learn his ABCs and his colors and his shapes. But I'm also running the risk of my child coming home with this deadly virus. Or do I keep him at home and hope for the best, that in a few months that he'll be able to return to school and pick up where he left off? Now, I've had the privilege of being able to speak to a few pediatricians about what the true impact will be. And they say, Nicole, don't worry. Children are resilient. He won't remember a thing. And that, in fact, may be true. But in the moment when my child is asking me, when will he be able to see all the people? It completely rips away at my heart. See, every single night when my son and I say our prayers, and I tell him to bless mommy, bless daddy, bless Mimi, bless Papa, bless Parker, and all little boys and girls in the world. Every single night, my son says, and tomorrow, mommy, I'll be able to see all the people. And every single night, I tell my son, soon, baby, soon. The other part of this scenario is, what about me? What does this mean for my future? That's a hard question. What if they don't call me back? What if I find myself permanently laid off? Then what do I do? How do I pivot? And where do I pivot to? And what I quickly realized is that I had to be open to the possibilities. The possibility of doing something different. Quite honestly, the possibility of doing something that I've always wanted to do and never was willing or able or had the courage to take the risk to do it. But if I want to be empowered, if I want to take control over something during this time, during this pandemic, I can't control when a vaccine is going to come out. I can't control whether or not if the person in the supermarket is wearing a mask or not. But I can certainly control on what I want my destiny to be. And quite honestly, ladies, we all have that opportunity, at least to dream, to start putting plans in place. So when we do have that opportunity to pivot, that we have a framework before us in order to do it. But what I want to be able to do over the next couple of episodes is to hear from other moms of all races and all demographics. What has been your experience? What have been that thing that you've always wanted to do and you never had an opportunity to do it? And when we come out on the other end of this, how do we begin to implement those ideas? Because quite honestly, this is probably the best time for us to take advantage of it. And I want to talk to my sisters for just a moment. Ladies, to be honest, we're the new hotness. And why do I say that we're the new hotness? Well, there are tons of reasons right before us. Number one, we have our first Black woman as vice president-elect. She has not only cracked the glass ceiling, she has shattered it. In addition to that, we know that we show up when it matters. We know in this last election cycle that we, in fact, represented 94% of the votes in the Democratic Party. It is our time to not only be seen, but to be heard. So how do we harness this new power? It may not feel like it at this moment because we're wiping up boo-boos and we're cleaning up spills and we're hoping that our children are recognizing their ABCs, or we're multitasking on doing our work at home or trying to find a job while virtually teaching our children. But it's important for us at this time that we grab hold of the possibilities of being able to do something different. It may be extremely scary. We may not have a clue on how we would come up with the resources, let alone finding the time to create a business plan and to do research on perhaps how to start a podcast. What's a streaming service? What do I need to do in order to launch a podcast or start my own business in selling goods and services or baking cakes that I absolutely love to do, where do we find the time? And the answer is we don't find the time, but we have to make the time. My goal is to hear from you. So I'm excited over the next couple of episodes that I will be able to speak to some phenomenal women who are in the trenches every day, balancing work and taking care of their families, or reinventing themselves while they're taking care of their children. I hope that you will join me for the upcoming episodes of More Than Lipstick, the stay-at-home mom, the social experiment.